Hello, my name is Nicole Moore and I'm a public historian. This evening, as we are celebrating the holiday season, we really want to talk about the lives of the enslaved and what they might have been eating. So tonight, got a little salt pork, got a couple pieces of turnip, a little onion, and some greens. We're gonna break that down and make that in a nice pot, and then we're gonna fry up some catfish, something that would have been found in the Potomac River just behind us. And this is something that the enslaved would have been eating to supplement their diets. So, I've got my bit of onion right here. I've already got a couple of pieces already chopped up. We've got just purple turnip, nothing special. But this time of the year, especially after the first frost, your turnips are gonna be sweeter. And I know that there are some people who are like, turnips can be bitter. But this time of year, right when the ground is getting cold, it's really gonna bring out that sweetness. And this as a root vegetable is going to last. So if you're pulling these out of the garden, the enslaved knew that they could have this for a couple of weeks. This is going to add depth to something very simple that they would have had. Your greens are just gonna be what's out in the fields. And again, after that first frost, those greens are gonna be nice and sweet. So when you're thinking about your curly mustards of today or your turnip greens, same thing. We've got a couple pieces cut up here, and you just wanna strip the stems. They would have probably just thrown all of this in here, torn it up by hand and getting it in there. We're gonna head over to the fire. I'm gonna take my piece of fat, and this is a one pot. We're just putting this in because at this time, while I'm preparing this dish, there are a lot of other meals being made in this kitchen at the same time. And as we're feeding our community, we have to understand that our priority is the big house. So we're doing this really quickly. I just want to bring this out. You don't want to be in the fire because it's hot. But I just want to put my greens in here. I just want to put those roots, get all of that in there. I might have a little bit of my kitchen pepper, just a mix of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Y'all don't need to know all our secrets. But we just want to put enough in just to season that up. And once it goes back over the fire, we're going to let that sit and break down. And again, this is happening, took literally 2 to 3 minutes because I know that my priority is now going to shift to what's happening in the house. Now we want our catfish. And like I said, the Potomac River is right behind us, and catfish is one of those fishes that's in there, something that the enslaved community would have caught to supplement maybe that salt pork, that cornmeal. If we've got a little bit at the end of the week, we might find some lard, we might render down some fat. We might want to fry up this catfish just a little bit with our cornmeal. So I've got catfish already chopped up because I don't want to make whole pieces. I want to make them just little bites, little nuggets, if you will. I've got my kitchen pepper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dredge my catfish in my cornmeal. So I'm gonna go ahead and heavily season my cornmeal. We want to make sure that that gets in there. We want to mix that up really well. And then because you can never have too much of the seasoning on this, I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle a little magic on my catfish here. And a kitchen pepper is just something that the enslaved would have. It's just a mix of various herbs and spices. Again, I'm not telling you the secrets, but it's gonna have maybe some pepper. This one smells like it has maybe a little bit of clove, a little bit of nutmeg, some salt in there. Just something that's gonna give additional flavors. So I got a nice, cute little piece of catfish right here. My lard is already going. You wanna have a hot pan. You wanna preferably do this in a cast iron. That's what they would have been using. And we're working this over the fire. So you also want to be very careful when you're doing this. All right, so we've got our catfish out. Like I said, very quick, very simple. It's something that we could snack on as we are doing all of the other prep and all of the other cooking, but it's fresh, it's from the river, It's authentic. It's what we're doing.
Hello, my name is Cheney McKnight, and today I'm cooking oyster soup for our Christmas program to show what the Lees would have been eating around Christmas time. So, right now I'm chopping up very tiny pieces of onion, and I have a bit of salt pork. And so I've heated up some butter, and I'm going to saute these items real quick in the butter. Give it a bit of a stir, and then put this kettle back over the fire. You want to saute it very nicely to get that really nice, flavorful base within the oyster soup. So you may have seen me referring to a sheet of paper while doing this recipe. This is an oyster soup receipt or recipe, and many enslaved cooks were actually literate, so they could be given a recipe from anywhere from around the world and do it right here in the kitchens. So right now, I'm actually going to take the liquor from the oysters, as well as a slurry, which is flour and water. It makes it just a little bit easier to mix in flour without getting clumps into the soup. I'll go ahead and pour it into the pot. Right now, I have some rich milk, or as we know of it today as heavy cream, and we're gonna also add this to the pot. It's gonna really make this dish very rich and delicious. Make sure that you keep stirring, because we don't want this to curdle. Now, once we bring our milk mixture to a boil, we then want to add in the stars of the show, the oysters. So right now I'm gonna go take it over and add it to the boiling mixture. Remember to continue to stir this. This is a cream, meaning that it can burn quite swiftly. It also can curdle, so keep a close eye on this oyster soup. This is gonna cook for about 15 more minutes, 10 to 15 more minutes. Keep an eye on it throughout that time. It'll be very delicious.
Well, good evening. I'm Dontavius Williams, and I am a living history interpreter. Glad to be here at Stratford Hall today to make some chocolate. We've enjoyed chocolate since the colonial times, and right here at Stratford Hall, there was a chocolatier. But guess what? He was enslaved. He did a phenomenal job of bringing something from nothing. He turned something that was bitter into something that was very delectable. Remember the last time we talked? Something from nothing? We're going to turn bitter into sweet today. Caesar was the cook here. He was born in 1732, and around 1750, he was the chief cook here in this kitchen. And chocolate making was his job. Now, around the holiday season, this was really the highlight of the time, was to have some chocolate, to have the really good things. We all love chocolate, we all love sweets, but today we're going to talk about sipping chocolate. There was a process. It didn't just come just because it was, grown on a tree. As a matter of fact, you couldn't use the cocoa bean just as it was. There's a process. You have to roast the beans. You have to roast the hulls off and peel them. You winnow them, and then you grind them in a mortar and pestle. Once you get the cocoa beans like you need them, you put them in the mortar and pestle, and you grind them. And you get what are called nibs, chocolate nibs. You want to get it as fine as you can in the mortar and pestle, and then you want to transfer it to the chocolate stone where you can therein grind it. Now, you don't just grind chocolate or melt it down on a cold stone. You have to have a warm stone. And so as you saw Nicole and Cheney cooking, and they were moving around a big rock, they were moving around this chocolate stone. And we wanted to keep it warm. And so as we do this, we're just going to grind it. It only gets delicious when you add the special ingredient, spices and sugar. Sugar is what makes the world go round. This is a very time-consuming process, but helps you get those aggressions out. I'm going to grab some sipping chocolate that I actually put on a little earlier. In just a second, let me grab it. So, the only thing in this chocolate pot here is the chocolate that has been melted down or ground down. We have some sugar in it, and then some spices, some cinnamon. And so you just take it and water. You take it and you want to stir it. It gets thick. It gets really delicious. It's really good and warm. Now, the very last thing that you want to do is you want to dress it with a little bit more spice, and that is nutmeg. Again, this would have been enjoyed as the highlight of the evening in the colonial times, sipping chocolate.
So as you can see, we're back. We've got our catfish fresh out that grease. We've got our turnip greens. You see those bits of turnip in there with that salt pork. And this is what the enslaved are going to be eating after we have made a big meal for the Lees.
And of course, we have the highlight of the evening, which is that sipping chocolate to round things off for the big house there. And Caesar, again, I want to mention him being that chocolatier that we honor on this evening.
And we have here some oyster stew in which the Lees would be eating for their main meal. And it is very rich. It has those fresh oysters along with that beautiful cream. Something very nice for the evening.
Listen, we want to thank you for joining us as we take a tour right back in time and learn how Christmas and the holiday season was celebrated by the enslaved as well as the Lee family. Enjoy your holiday. Thank you.